Yes, thank you very much for the happy introduction. Monks and nuns are somehow eudaimonists or nesters. They just want one thing to be blissful. And in this respect, they could perhaps be experts for us, where we can possibly make small corrections to contemporary culture. Admittedly, they are somehow anti-mainstream, a bit cultural punks, which you can also tell from their clothing. But she and you don't have to become so radical right away. Maybe there has always been a little monk in them. If you've already tried a lot of things but still feel like you're missing the icing on the cake, you might get a few suggestions here. I have a bit of a professional obligation to deal with these things, and of course I try to make it as blissful as possible. The small disadvantage is that what I deal with academically has a lot to do with practical life, so I have to try it. I've been my own test guinea pig for years now. So far, you see, I've survived. My circle of friends throws their hands up over their heads every now and then. I don't stick to every method. For example, I've never tried throwing small pieces of pointed shards into bed. Cookie crumbs, yes. And by the way, people rolled on it too. But I figured out what it could be. Namely, because of the feeling of pain, like the Geislers. Releases endorphins. But I don't have to recommend that to them. It's enough to go sea kayaking on the North Sea, in 7-gust winds, or train for a half marathon. A lot has already been researched. Today I'm concentrating on what I think are the top 5 monk lifestyles. I don't know if we'll get to the end of the list of possible lifestyle supplements. That's why I'll start with number 1, but I present the list. First, concentration. Your life as a flow of happiness, against distraction. A little note against multitasking. Second, only keep the clutter that makes you happy. Third, fasting makes you smart. Fourth, those who go to Barflos have non-stop foot massage. And fifth, maybe we'll just get there. Not for those who don't want to get out of the greenhouse. So number 1, concentration. Your life as a flow of happiness. It has now also been published as a Spiegel bestseller, which makes monks happy. Concentrate. Daniel Goleman is a science journalist and also wrote the bestseller. Emotional intelligence. IQ is not enough, EQ would be better. Or leading with emotions. So it has also reached the economic levels. And Daniel Goleman also says that, according to hiring research, multitasking more and more is not that healthy. Multitasking makes you stupid. What shall we do now? The bosses would like the paramecium from us to be shared between 2 or perhaps ideally 10. The market also wants to bring as many events as possible to men and women. But has it made her consistently happy so far? Multitasking determines the boss. I shout in their memory as a counterpowder, perhaps trying to concentrate on an activity that they would laugh at me if I told them to do because they enjoy doing it so much, simply as a counterpoint to multitasking. For some it might be swimming, for others it might be jogging. Some may actually read specialist books or practice on the instrument. So in this activity we have a feeling of flow. The characteristics of this activity are that you are away from everyday worries and don't think. That's why this activity is quite addictive. Your soul expands, your body is relieved of stress, and the best thing would actually be if you could earn money with it, also get paid for it, always be in the flow. The trick would be that in the midst of the hustle and bustle of everyday life, they often remind themselves of this activity, but turning this into a meditation exercise is going too far tonight. The main problem is that many people assume that we cannot have this feeling of happiness in everyday life. It has now been proven what constitutes this feeling of happiness. So in short, if they could use their brain well or find the switch, they could also be in college and have this feeling of happiness. So they imagine their lives largely based on the feeling of happiness from their favorite activity. Perhaps as a cross-check, imagine this favorite activity while the television or radio is playing in the background. You are always checking text messages on your smartphone and reading emails at the same time. Then the thing would be pretty messed up. So in their activity, they are in flow. That means only the present exists. And my point is that it is also possible in everyday life, when all worries disappear and the hours fly by. They have a high sense of control over their activities. You know what to do at all times and have a crystal clear mind that switches off everything that hinders the flow of thought. Oh, there's still the unfinished seminar paper, or I still have to read or something. You have a feeling of happiness that seems to disappear, and you don't have the feeling that you have to control the activity now, but that you are guided by it, taken along. Multitasking, on the other hand, flow is impossible, and with it, happiness. It lowers productivity, which has also been found in smartphone-addicted kids who keep checking the thing. Productivity drops by 60%. On top of that, it weakens our memory because our brain is not suitable for multitasking, but instead just oscillates back and forth between activities. You don't get anything done properly. The likelihood of mistakes is increased, which creates the feeling of loss of control. And if you can't find something again, or don't remember something, instead of happiness, it also creates stress. The variety of activities seems to control you, and your creativity drops to miserable levels. So what would it be like if a fairy came and enchanted you so that you would retain this feeling of flow in your everyday life? A trick that monks use now is to create a focus. So if someone said to you, "Oh, stop thinking about the exam tomorrow. Yeah, it's everyday life now, man. I'm not on the field right now." So if someone says, "Don't worry about it," that won't help you because you can't control your thoughts through a willful decision. And a trick would be like the Zen Buddhists use. They concentrate on the breathing flow. But if you concentrate on the flow of your breath, when you're stressed, you might even feel blue and frantic breathing. We don't want that either. So the trick would be to find your concentration word. This then creates an increasing feeling of flow. It should be something positive. Impossible, the monks would say. Take a code word for the highest class, level of consciousness. I'm saying this now in a multi-religious way, so it could be atheistic, love surrounds me, or my essence is love, or a love protected. You could also choose yourself in God's name, or something pretty holy, and try that first when your thoughts come to life in the evening from sleep, because they really come to life again and pop up. Simply say your concentration word to yourself undaunted, despite this noise in your head, and you can put the stupidest thoughts that cause you the most worry in the back as a shorthand. So, love surrounds me even in the exam tomorrow. Love surrounds me and until it's boring. So, we're not fighting anything. That would be a trick of the monks, and it has been proven that, especially if you practice this over and over again in everyday life, perhaps not so much when driving a car in the beginning, that you will then reach a brain frequency that is above the average population. First of all, you grow more gray cells in the neocortex. They are then in the so-called gamma band, around 30 to 70 hertz. Only people who solve highly concentrated math problems have that. And now imagine that you are in the flow, in the middle of everyday life. Then you create something like this, which is called metacognition. You notice what you think and feel. They are something like that spiritually, that is, in witness consciousness. And from then on, you have the chance to recognize your stupidest patterns. Unfortunately, you most often end up in a state where you finally notice what your partner has been saying for years, but which you have successfully denied up until then. That's why the monks also use it for increased self-knowledge. Such procedures are now also used for depression or obsessive-compulsive disorder. But today is just Night of the Profs. We have to move on to the next title, number 2. Only keep the clutter that makes you happy, throw the rest away. How do you determine that now? So monks' cells, which are suspiciously called something like that, or kelion in Greek, are furnished in a relatively Spartan manner. Reduced to the max, less is more. There are now such neo-monks. What I found most fascinating was business student Mark Boyle. He also wrote a book about it, The Man Without Money. He once tried living without money for a year and thought it was so cool that he stuck with it and also fascinated others who are now doing it. So these are, insofar as they are now, very, very, very reduced. I don't want to suggest that to you straight away. We could now move on to another more culturally acceptable monastic solution. They want to try it out in the monastery first. And now that's a pretty karate-like solution to Marie Kondo magic cleaning. I would have needed it when I was a student, especially with dishabille. It was more like balancing between stacks of books and chocolate wrappers. And she recommends, so why I quote her, I'll try to make it palatable to you from Munch's perspective again under the motto concentration. She doesn't see tidying up as a discipline that parents order, but then don't tell the child how to tidy up. Essentially, it's just a matter of stowing it away and then it oozes out again, like seaweed, out of every crack when you open something. So this is not sustainable. And Marie Kondo discovered, as these meditating Japanese are, that tidying up has something to do with self-discovery. So basically, afterwards, people say, now I know exactly what I need and what I don't. There are no bad or frustrated purchases. Or someone said, a feeling of clarity settles on my soul. A drastic change in consciousness is triggered. As I cleaned up, I figured out what I really wanted to do. So many people don't know exactly what makes them happy. And the trick, which is now just in brief, Marie Kondo says, is to first create general categories, all clothes, so everything that is material, everything that is books, with them, be careful with the books. Then everything that is small stuff, and finally, all the memorabilia first form piles to see the drama of how much you have accumulated. And now let's start with the clothing, depending on the category, boxer shorts or anorak or sportswear. Show your absolute favorite piece. Now you have a feeling, what makes you happy? You didn't really notice that before. And now take the second favorite in her hand and the third favorite. And now go ahead and keep your favorite things, because they will strengthen your personality and your charisma. Now you have consciously found out what you were only vaguely looking for before. And before you even throw anything away or make a decision, you should feel it. So build up a conscious relationship with each thing, and for things that look more like a frustration purchase, you should also remind yourself what the purpose of this purchase was. Oh, I was so unhappy back then and I liked the color, but it was 3 sizes too big, but it was cheap or something. So you are also confronted with the story of your bad purchases and frustrations, but the thing has done its job. She also says to say goodbye to everything lovingly, and by simply saying thank you now. That's enough for now, and then an average household will be fulfilled by her if she helps average people with the method, who are also not messy, so, well, 70 garbage bags, 45 liters within 2 days. That's the karate-like thing. But the result is people who have consciously figured out what I need, who I am, what strengthens my personality, and that is the monastic thing again. Afterwards, you are only surrounded by things that make you happy. Of course, it also has the utility value of things, but you don't need 2 corkscrews and so on. So I went through the various pieces of luggage. I travel a lot, and suddenly I discovered that I always thought I didn't have a pen with me when I traveled. 15 ballpoint pens, 4 chargers from my cell phone. It's so exciting. Well, not found. Quickly bought new, and in the end you have so much storage space that you can easily assign each thing its regular place. So tidying up as the shortest path to self-knowledge, and here not as a discipline, but with the desire, who am I, what do I need, what makes me happy, and then you can really know, in a much more targeted manner, exactly what your favorite parts are. She says both hoarding and eating are all about the same theme, insatiable greed. And greed actually arises when we don't know exactly what we're looking for. So that was hit number 2. Only keep what makes you happy, or what is really important to you now as a commodity, and throw the rest away. Then the environment, like the monk's cell, strengthens our personality. Interim conclusion. I could list any elements from the monk lifestyle, But these two things alone make it clear that the basic principle is the spirit behind it. It's about uncovering and feeling and nurturing our own being. Of course, a person can perish and starve from too little, but the current zeitgeist harbors the opposite danger. Our being is overwhelmed by excess, and we have so many choices that we hardly take the time to ask, who am I, and what strengthens me the most? The monks believe, as the nun also puts it inclusively, that everyone can reveal their own essence, because after all, what we have is our own. And everyone will be happy when they find it. So, that's the simplest criteria. If they're happy the way they live, keep it. It's always just a matter of tips on the path of people who take the path of concentration, of quality instead of quantity, what has proven to work for them. After that, once you have that, you no longer want to change with the old lifestyle. I remember that it's been a while since the movies. I found the very cute cartoon Ratatouille. This is a rat that has actually already figured out its nature and now wants to reveal it. A rat that follows the vision that told it again in the spirit of a top chef that everyone can cook. And of course she lives in a pack and has, among other things, brothers who simply eat whatever is in the gutter. If she finds it herself, she makes creations out of it, strawberries and cheese and everything in the right proportions. Anyone can cook, and so she occupies a fatal intermediate position. She no longer belongs to the pack of rats, but where she wants to go, what makes her the gods, so to speak, the realm of top chefs, namely Paris, where she would ideally have her own restaurant, she is considered a pest. In the end, she still manages to do it. That's the beauty. And, unlike Ratatouille, we humans are built in such a way that God already lives in us, and our innermost feeling of happiness will show us that, i.e., in the moment in love, in the moment of our act of happiness, where we are in the flow. So we have a clear direction if we have learned to take our feelings seriously. But we only perceive these feelings as long as our mind is clear, and on every level of our being there is a danger that we will lose ourselves through quantity. When it comes to the body, for example, when we have overeaten, it is also about tenderness, about the spice of life. You can also develop quality there. With the soul, if we seek love and want to experience harmony, we can do this through quantity, by striving to be loved by as many people as possible. In the mind, the search for truth is very much based on the quantity that we stuff our heads so full of thoughts and always squeeze in the latest information that we ultimately lose concentration on the essentials. Even when looking for God, you can make a number of mistakes with the quantity by going to church too much, reading too many texts, or by being so busy meditating that there is hardly any time left for self-knowledge. But the feedback is immediate again. It makes me happy. I feel like peace is coming into my life and that I realize how valuable I am. The monk's tip is to reduce your actions, go for quality, because that is the ultimate insight. What you are looking for outside you will find inside. Stop projecting your desires outside. Notice where your own conflict lines lie. The fact that there are so many voices within you creates clarity. Which of the many voices within you do you want to follow? So, what you are looking for on the outside, deep relaxation, love, truth, highest light, that is what you have long been. The false path of quantity lurks at every level. How do you make yourself even smarter now? Yes, that might not be a big hit for you anymore. Fasting makes you smart. I had read but not checked. If you want to enter an Orthodox monastery, there are over 240 days of fasting, of course with different regulations. Maybe I don't have to say so much about fasting anymore, it's already nice. Meanwhile, for example, there is a professor at the Berlin Charité, Andreas Michelsen. He is one of the few top doctors who rely on natural medicine and has now published a book, Healing with the Power of Nature. He is the chief physician at the Emanuel Hospital in Berlin, and he combines the best methods from all over the world, local plant medicine, TCM, Ayurveda, and even he now advises vegetarian and vegan diets, fasting for healing, superfoods and super drinks, virgin olive oil, meditation, yoga, exercise, water application. I'm just saying water from the cold water pipe. That's a shock. So, let's go fasting first. For the monks, the most important thing is not so much to repent or to become sad. Jesus is also said to have fasted for 40 days before he said something publicly. Fasting is about highly refined perception. It cultivates a highly alert mind. You may notice that, depending on how you went to the cafeteria or to the Oblomorph or other places, you either feel duller afterwards, or it strengthens you so much that you can now go jogging. On top of that, it has now been discovered that it is not our brain that produces serotonin, i.e. happiness hormones, but rather the digestive tract. It can produce 70% serotonin, so you have a real drug factory inside you. But if the Berliner would say catwurst and other things in there, the production of happiness is a bit in a traffic jam. So you can feel alert, super refined in your perception, and also eat happily. Again, buy less. Oh God, how is that supposed to work? So here too there remains only a brief hint. If you want to read it, there is Bert Herring written with RR, so Herring only with RR, almost 5, and he is a former Air Force doctor. How does he come to recommend this diet? He knew that there is no medical reason why men and women over 40 get fat. And the gym wasn't really his thing, he was already a bit overweight. And so he preferred to go to the library and read about the causes of diseases of affluence in old textbooks. And he learned that it's not so much about what we eat, but how often. We are a large mammal, and large mammals only eat once a day, perhaps unlike guinea pigs and rabbits. And these large mammals, if they are not so pampered or overfed, hardly ever become overweight, and they have no cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or cancer unless they always feed them their pizza leftovers. His wife Judy was also overweight, and she was also a doctor, and they both agreed to an experiment. It's incredibly difficult if you put another chocolate in the fridge, shuko puddings and everything, then it becomes easier. For a month they ate whatever they wanted, but only between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. That's this fasting 5, within 5-hour nutrition window. Wake up the bear, the elephant, whatever. And they stuck with it. The results were amazing. Bert Herring, Fast 5. Muscles appeared in parts of the body where they were previously only known from anatomy textbooks. They were seen, pounds dropped, blood pressure too, and gums healed. Bert Herring was now energized, and he started jogging. Judy too. Eventually word got around among my friends, and everyone wanted to have such muscle with the same results. What's the trick? If you keep adding food, the body simply uses glucose primarily for energy. But in the meantime now he is burning fat, 1 rind at a time. You lose around 300 grams per week. They could also do sports. And the energy remains consistently good because the fat is burned. In addition, they then pay attention over time. Admittedly, there are eating binges at the beginning or going to the apple again early and more. But you shouldn't do it so stubbornly. And you will notice that you are much more awake. They are truly energetic in every way. You notice much more. It makes you smart. And in addition, if you want to imitate this in a radical way, I noticed that there were always stories about enlightened monks on Mount Athos in the 20th century. It was then said that they, yes, greens, herbs and berries, that is with E, went collecting. And my favorite monk, Paisios from Athos, only died in 1994. He was also a super enlightened person who, what do I know, could do spiritual healing and all that sort of thing, and astral projection and stuff like that. He said, if you want to stay healthy, throw away the frying pan. So then I looked it up, so now I don't really know Greek wheats. Nettle ground wheat. Anyone who knows me knows how horrible my breakfast looks. So the whole thing is now, it's already widespread, green smoothies, Victoria Butenko, her book Green for Life. So she cured her whole family with such weeds: cardiac arrhythmia, arthritis, hyperthyroidism. The two children were already, so it's USA, the two children already had various allergies and asthma and diabetes. She probably had the family firmly under control and switched them to raw food for 7 years. Until then there was an absolute strike. So there are always those mountains of lettuce. Although her health was good, her desire to eat and eat together decreased drastically, and she saw a film about chimpanzees by Jane Goodell. The chimpanzees wrapped their fruit in green leaves, and she knew that was the moment when green smoothies were invented. Humans are 98% chimpanzees. What do they eat? 40% fruit, 10% starch tubers, and 50% green smoothies, we could say. Greens, green leaves. In short, what the monks do also fits our evolutionary lifestyle as a large mammal. 1 meal a day in the direction of chimpanzees. In short, they can eat wild herbs and, best of all, fruit. Unsweetened. No sugared pineapple and things like that. So put really fresh fruit in a high-performance blender and it makes you healthy. Now I'll come back to the nettle and the groundweed. Why it's good to eat weed. Your neighbor will love you for it. I would like to point out that St. Hildegard of Bingen grew giersch in the monastery garden, not raked it away. Giersch contains 4 times as much vitamin C as a lemon. Or at least I don't like kale that much, I admit. I was in Berlin too long, so at least twice as much vitamin C as kale, and twice as much provitamin A as red ones. Paprika and 7 grams of protein per 100 grams. So also good for athletes. You can forget about all the mineral supplements. Giersch contains iron, manganese, calcium, magnesium, potassium, zinc, and silica. Now you know why Hildegard von Bingen grew it. So you need vitamin B for healthy muscles and so on. That's in the dandelion. In winter you can add dandelion tea as a powder instead of dandelion tea. The nettle should be mentioned briefly. Vitamin C 10 times that of spinach. Vitamin A almost as good as carrots. The nettle, here I am now. It also provides high-quality protein. The amino acids also 7 grams per 100 grams, and depending on where it grows, 2 to 4 times more iron than in a comparable amount of beef steaks, twice as much iron as in spinach. So now it's clear why the family got well, but don't gather near the Lubinus Clinic. That's always my way home for the next breakfast. They've chopped off the nettles now, so let's take the horses that way. Yes, in the remaining time, hit number 4. If you go barefoot, you have non-stop foot reflexology massage. There are actually like hands on the feet. An Asian meditation teacher once said that the feet can be just as sensitive as hands if you let them out of their little leather coffins. There are 200,000 nerve endings here. That's why they are so sensitive, and we already know that. From Zen meditation, they sit and then have walking meditation again and again. Actually, I'm always of the opinion that meditation is unnecessary if we're going to live humanely again. So ultimately for the monks, it's actually about the reintroduction of humans into the wild, i.e., actually keeping them in a species-appropriate manner. And if we now, well, I have this now because I can't say everything like that. There's a book called Feet Well, Everything's Well. That's a physiotherapist who justifies it. It's actually here like in Kiel Godo. So go up at the front first and then walk carefully. So you walk normally when you're no longer wearing your school shoes, and a heel doesn't force you to step on with your heel first. Then they increasingly walk again like a Maasai or an Indian sneaking through the undergrowth. Firstly, they are always in contact with the earth. Some say the earth has its own magnetic field. So ultimately, we are something like stingrays. All of our organs have their own electromagnetic field with their own frequencies, and there is a very deep calm within they move in. But touch down with your forefoot first, and ultimately that's better for your body's statics. So Francis of Assisi and many monks in Tibetan Buddhism go barefoot. And ultimately, you can't meditate if your spine is pretty broken. So the point is, that your own life stream can flow again in the truest sense of electricity. And if the vertebrae in your spine are simply tilted towards each other, are shifted, then either the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is squeezed and we are over-activated or over-paralyzed in that area. Everything depends on it. Actually, heels are in themselves. The nobility invented the heel for self-aggrandizement. So heels in themselves are from the devil from a monk's point of view. If I radically exaggerate this a bit and add my point of view, they stand in front of a high-rise building, 175 meters high, and the foundation plate is cast 1 meter crooked. Our body isn't stupid now, and what does it do? You get LWS, he balances it out, and HWS. Unless you have toned abdominal muscles from sea kayaking, because you can wear high heels and the like. Again, for a while, they are nice. Heavy metal shoes look nice. So your back will thank you, and above all, everything like sweaty feet, flat feet, splayed bends, fallen arches. The arch of the foot has also been proven to straighten up again after a short time. Finally, the cold shower. Nothing for a warm shower. So from the many mortifications of monks since the 4th century, including in Christianity, I'm now only picking one option that I really think makes sense, and Pastor Kneipp has already revived the cold water in the evangelical area as an evangelical pastor. We have plenty here in Kiel. There are definitely ice bathers here who are definitely still looking for companions. I haven't made any contact with them yet. For example, no one knows about another favorite monk of mine, Evagrios Ponticus, but he was at least as clever as Master Eckhart, who died shortly in the 4th century, and it is also said that he sat in ice water for hours. He exaggerated it a bit, but he was enlightened. So he also said, like the Tibetan Buddhists, he also says that the goal is for the human spirit to begin to see its own light. So that is the goal, that they can unite with the source from which they come from a spiritual point of view, and to which they go, that they can unite with it during their lifetime, and that is happiness. It's like Starship Enterprise, then you finally have contact with the control center. So the monks didn't mind trying to get a clear mind and actually cold water. Only afterwards, you are really happy. And it trains, in any case, that's the most positive thing I can say about it, the blood vessels. You can train them like muscles, and the blood vessels, if the source I'm quoting is correct, it's supposedly 125,000 kilometers long, so that if you lined them up one after the other, you could wrap them around the earth 3 times, and they supply everything with nutrients. And if there's something that doesn't work anymore, if it is properly cared for, it will just become wrinkled and shriveled up, and we don't want that. And the best neo-monk of the present time, I really like him because he has a lot of medical teams examining him in the Netherlands, Wim Hof, the Iceman. He also has a website that has a lot on it, including the latest medical examinations and long-term studies, not just on him, but on people who were trained by him. But there is also a rumor going around. Be careful, do it slowly. Since he has been teaching this method, 4 people have died because they tried it in water that was too cold, without any control, and then you have this swimming pool blackout. Not so good. So at least to get them out of the greenhouse, so no matter where we are, it's air conditioned here too. The heating in the car will be on, or the air conditioning in the summer cooling things down again. We simply lack the natural stimulus, and our blood vessels become lazy and sluggish and inflamed. And now, as an example, a lawyer from the Dutch province of Friesland, Jack Egberts. Lawyer had been feeling tired and listless for some time, and as it turned out, when he had himself examined, he was suffering from Lyme disease. The doctors said there was hardly anything they could do for him, but because he was very energetic anyway, he now contacted Wim Hof, the Iceman, and only he has a large, successful law firm, never did things by halves, and went straight to work for a whole week ice tub under Wim Hof's instructions. Fortunately, the beneficial effects were successful for him. He hardly had any problems anymore. He had himself examined, and all symptoms of Lyme disease disappeared. Everything sounded too good to be true, and then he tells his mother, who had been taking medication for high blood pressure for years, "You can just take a cold shower." So they can continue. They don't have to go to the Baltic Sea straight away. It's around 10 degrees anyway, and so everything isn't so nice anymore. It's enough. There were various attempts, warm showers, and then maybe only 30 seconds. Start with your legs first, not over your head straight away, then 60 seconds or 90 seconds. When I first started, I'm a self-confessed warm shower. I squealed like a pig, and now the tub water is so icy, so I was really proud to buy a thermometer. I can now manage to lie in the tub for 5 minutes with normal tap water after I let the warm water drain first. It's pretty nasty. But afterwards, you are really happy and awake in any case. Maybe to conclude, for me, it's about showing what our bodies can do, and health is also linked to happiness. If we venture a little into the wilderness again, Wim Hof, many people who are sick are already turning to them. By the way, he says, of course I can't cure cancer, so he doesn't promise a cure, but it is impressive how he wanted to climb Kilimanjaro with a group of 26 people in just 48 hours in 2014. Some participants suffered from MS, rheumatism, Crohn's disease, cancer, and all had no mountain experience. The local mountain guides considered this action a disaster. They decided not to go with the group. Wim then assigned 2 people to walk side by side, and 24 of the 26 participants reached the summit at 5,195 meters at minus 15 degrees in just 48 hours. All the sick people were also there. So that's a peak performance that people who otherwise trained couldn't achieve at all, also because of altitude sickness. And on top of that, he said, we'll only walk the last section in short shorts. So what's wrong with that, Kiel? It's warm here. I invite you to lots of nice experiments. So the main message is focus, quality over quantity, and the most important thing is to find out, who am I? What really makes me happy? So no one can take this task off your hands, and I enjoy diversion for a while. But they are too valuable to go through life wasted. I wish you much joy in your future life. Thanks. Thanks. Thanks.